So this is our financial aid FAFSA tutorial on the 5th section of the FAFSA, the parent tax filing status. So again, if you were a student who started filling out the FAFSA and when you went through the dependency questions, it determined you were a dependent student and must provide parent information, then you will have provided the parent demographic and household size information. And again, now we're moving on to the parent financials. And you'll notice it's kind of a little bit different color. The parent financials, well, it's in blue. I guess when we finish, it's green. This is where it can get a little tricky with the FAFSA. Just as a student, be aware it's parent financials is asking about your parent income. And after that, we'll do student financials, where it's going to ask you, the student, about your income. So some students get confused there and they put their parent information again a second time under the student financials. And then suddenly your application shows up at a financial aid office that your household income is really high because you put your parents' income as your student income and you've doubled your family income when maybe you as a student, you're not working and you're not making any money. So just be aware in the FAFSA when you're getting these parts that you're filling out parent information versus student information. So let's move forward with parent financials. The first question it asks is, and again, this is the 2020-21 FAFSA asking for 2018 income information for students that are going to be starting school in the fall of 2021 next year, and coming up here on October 1, that will be the 2021-22 FAFSA, and you'll want to gather your 2019 tax year information. So you can answer this question: have your parents completed their IRS income tax return or other return? And you will say, Mom and Dad hopefully will be there to help you walk through this section. They've already completed their and filed their taxes. They will be filing taxes. Maybe they had to get an extension or something because we're kind of going 2 years back. So hopefully they've got them filed. Or maybe they didn't make enough income or whatever the situation, they didn't have to file taxes. So there's 3 options there. In this case, we're going to say Mom and Dad already completed their tax information. And then what type of income tax return did your parents file? So again, there's some different types. Most people now, they do an IRS 1040. And then for 2018, what was the parents' tax filing status? So there's some different options here, and depending on how you answered your parent information. If Mom and Dad are married, and you're in the house, Mom and Dad are married all together, Mom and Dad should be filing taxes as married filing joint or married filing separate. If it's a situation where Mom and Dad are separated or divorced, then one of those parents, the parent that's kind of taking care of the kids in the household, they can be filing for head of household. But you shouldn't have, if for some reason, again, you can submit your FAFSA application. About 30% of FAFSAs get selected for verification. It's very random, doesn't mean somebody did something wrong. But so our financial aid office may get your name and it may say, we need to verify information. The parents must submit a tax transcript. And you go to the IRS and you requested a tax transcript and you send it to the financial aid office. And you put on your FAFSA application, Mom and Dad are married and living in the house with me, but Mom or Dad have filed head of household. That's usually not legal in tax rules, and our office would have to say, okay, wait, we can't verify this or we can't accept this because Mom and Dad are married and then filing head of household, and that's not allowed by tax. So you would have to either amend your taxes, or maybe there's a reason through your CPA or something where you were allowed to file head of household or something unique was happening, and we can look at that for you. If Mom and Dad are separate, they can be filing single, or if you just have one parent you're living with, that can be happening too. But so it's very important to work with Mom and Dad and make sure you get these answers correct and they match what's on your tax return, so that it doesn't cause any hiccups when the financial aid office has to double check things or verify your information. So Mom, in this case, we're kind of going along with what we've been doing with this whole FAFSA tutorial, that Mom and Dad are married in the household. So I'm going to say Mom and Dad are married and they filed a joint return. When you get to this point in the FAFSA, you're going to see the option for the IRS data retrieval tool. This is the highly recommended, the best thing to do if your taxes are filed in a way that you're eligible to use this. You would click on the link to the IRS. It will open a separate web page and it will ask you to enter information off of your tax return, and kind of like your name and your identifying information. So you want to have a copy of your tax return, and you want to enter your name and address and everything exactly as it is on the tax return that was submitted to the IRS. Because now we're not talking so much to federal government FAFSA, the retrieval tool is talking to the IRS. So you want it to match your tax return information. So if you've done a 1040 and everything's been filed and there aren't any hiccups, then it should go straight through, and you can link to the IRS, and what it will do is it'll connect, it'll gather all the information that was in there from when your parents submitted the tax return, and it will pull it back into the FAFSA. So it makes it really nice because then it's all automated and all the income questions are done and you can move forward. However, there are some times when, based on the type of return that was filed, or maybe extra items on the tax return that make it so the IRS data retrieval tool won't work, and we'll have to move forward and manually put in income information. There can I've also seen situations where, if somebody in the past had filed a tax return and maybe there was some identity theft, and so now they have to use an IRS PIN number to submit their taxes, well, then the IRS data retrieval tool is going to kind of be flagged that there was something in the past where a parent had problems with being able to submit their taxes and having to make sure it's all legit and verified. They don't want any fraud happening here. So there are situations which are very legitimate that the IRS data retrieval tool doesn't work, and you have to manually enter the data, which is fine. You just have your taxes with you. It takes a little bit longer, plug in the numbers. But then again, when we talk about verification, if you're randomly selected and you use the IRS data retrieval tool, then the financial aid office can just waive it because the data was brought in electronically through the IRS and we know it's good. But versus if you manually enter the data, then you would have to go to the IRS and request a tax transcript and submit that to the financial aid office so they can verify your information. So if you're able to use the IRS data retrieval tool, this is the best way to go. So we click next, and again, it's just going to say, are you sure you don't want to use the IRS data retrieval tool? Give it a shot. But again, if you know you can use it, great. If not, you can just say no thanks. Let's go to the fun part of plugging in all the income information. So this can be a little tricky for parents and for students. This is probably the trickiest part of the FAFSA, and it takes the most attention. But just kind of go through them question by question. They try to be very helpful. For instance, the first one, what is your parents' adjusted gross income for 2018? This amount is found on the IRS Form 1040, line 7. So again, if you have your tax return in front of you when you do the FAFSA, all you have to do is look down at your Form 1040 that you submitted, look at line 7, there's going to be a number there. You just plug in that number. And I'm going to make up some, I'm just going to say the adjusted gross income was 85. Again, I'm just it's a demo site, I'm just plugging in some numbers. So my numbers don't go off of any official return, so they could be a little out of whack. And if you're not sure, again, what are they asking for, you can click on the question mark. And let's just do one so we can see what that looks like. Go back to my Windows. And let's pull up that question. What was your parents' adjusted gross income? This is the question on the FAFSA. It can be transferred, or it could be blank. They're talking about the different situations, where to find that. And then a lot of times on these questions, they show a picture of a tax return, and it says line 7, and you would find it here. So it can be very helpful in what number do I put here? And it can be depending on your income or what your situation was. There could be numbers here. Again, every person can be different. So I'm gonna go back to our thing. So from this case, I'm going off taxes. I'm putting $85,000. Next, what was the wages from the parent 1 and parent 2? And this, again, can be a little tricky when they're combined. And again, it'll say IRS Form 1040, line 1. Schedule 1, sometimes I think mom and dad's income is combined, so you may have to look at the W-2s to kind of break out what was the difference. So let's say, I plugged in 85,000 total, and I think, so we can say, between mom and dad, one of them did, say one of them made 60,000, and again, you type these numbers in, don't put, just round everything up or down. Don't put decimal numbers or exact amounts. It's just, and they have the .00, so it's just 60,000 was one parent's information. And again, if I want to be a little bit more than the adjusted gross income, maybe one parent was 26,000. And then I hit next. And then the amount of your parents' income tax for 2018, and again, they're telling you what line it's on. And if you're not sure, you can click the question mark and it's going to show you a picture of a tax form. So maybe the parents, had to pay $10,000 in taxes total for the year. And a lot of parents will ask, especially with dependency or with students, like, does it matter, if the parent claimed the child on their tax return, or if the child had their own job and they claimed themselves? That really doesn't matter in the world of financial aid. So either one can claim each other, the parent or the child. It doesn't matter. It's more kind of the income versus who was a dependent or on the tax form, because the dependency is more financial aid dependency versus tax form dependent. The next questions they go for, you kind of just work through lots of questions, and some of these may be zero, some of these may have amounts. But if you didn't have any of this, make sure you do put a zero in there. You can't leave it blank or it won't accept it. So things like combat pay, grants or scholarships received, and again, this is parent information, not student. So because mom and dad could also be taking college courses as well as their children. All kinds of things, lots of families, lots of unique situations. So again, you would just kind of go through these questions. It tells you what line to look for on the tax return, and again, there's help questions to plug them in here. So you can go through. If you don't have any of these items, you can leave them zero, and then you go on to the next block. And then did child support, like they'll say, they ask if you receive child support as a parent, or do you pay child support? So again, pay attention if it's kind of money coming into your household or money going out of your household. So again, child support, working under federal programs or co-op programs, different things. Some of these you may be like, no, I don't even know what this is, because if it doesn't make any sense to you, you probably don't have this. If you are receiving or paying an amount from one of these items, you're probably gonna be like, oh, I know what that is, and then you can plug in your amounts. And again, we're still on parents. Do parents have any of the following items? Child support received, food allowances, asking if you're on TANF or VA benefits, things like that, income, workers' compensation, disability benefits. So you kind of go through and depending on your income situation, answer these questions. And again, either putting in a number or putting in a zero. So then it'll kind of add, as of today, does the total amount of your parents' current assets exceed $7,700? And it's asking this because, and assets being property owned, investments, savings accounts, all kinds of things. As of today, if you say no, it's just going to move along. And if you say yes, then it's going to ask some additional questions. And it doesn't hurt to say, to look at them and double check. And sometimes we found it's kind of one of those things that make life easier after the fact. If your application is selected for verification, for some reason, when it gets processed, if you skip this section by saying no and it's left blank, it's going to come back as an error in our office, and you have to go back in and enter the zeros or fix it. And then it's one of those weird things where the way it's processed, like why doesn't it just automatically put in zeros like it did in other boxes? Because it can kind of come back to create a little bit of a headache later if you're selected for verification. So sometimes it doesn't hurt just to go ahead and look at all the questions they're asking on the income and make sure you either put in an amount or put in zero. So in this case, if it had been no, it wouldn't matter, but what is the current balance of cash, savings, and checking accounts? So just your general, kind of what's going on. I'm going to say maybe, the parent has, $1,500 in their checking and savings accounts as of today. And that changes because it's at the first of the month you just got paid, or it's after a payday, or it's like right before a payday. There's, sometimes there's nothing in your checking account and you're waiting for that next day to hit. As of today, what's the net worth of the parent's investments, including real estate? So you don't include the parent doesn't include the value of their home. Their home doesn't count, but maybe they own stocks, bonds, and savings accounts, or maybe they own other properties and rentals and things like that, and they have some value. So maybe mom and dad have $15,000 in a stock kind of savings account. And if the parents have a business or investment in farms, then they may be providing some information here. So that, again, they can be some tricky questions, but it's not too bad. It was just a couple pages of questions. A lot of those numbers are coming right off your tax return, items that you have. It's just important, that's why it's important when you've done your taxes to save those somewhere so you can pull them out and get that information versus, oh man, I've moved and I don't even know if I saved that stuff. And then maybe you can reach out to the IRS and get copies of things to answer those questions. But again, we finished the parent financial section. The application was successfully saved. You can use that DRT retrieval tool that can automatically pull the tax information in, or like we just did, you can manually punch in the information. If you have your return, it doesn't take that long. And we are all done there. And then again, just to keep these videos as short as possible, we'll end this one here, and then the next video we do, we'll be talking about the student answering their financial sections. And again, using a student, our typical general student that we see. So again, that is the parent financial section and what you can do to complete that.